Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we help multicultural incoming freshman women and men manage their entire college experience throughout post-graduation to successfully transition into entrepreneurship and corporate workspaces as new hires.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I finally figured it out. I'm back to me. So when you think you have nothing, back to me. I go back to me. Yeah, I'm back to me.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Yoli Tamu. It's the final week of Women's History Month, and we are honored to have with us Miss Rachel Solis, the Southern California Manager of Educational Partnerships with Collaborative Classroom. Ms. Solis believes that teachers are the number one contributing factor to student success. She encourages you to identify your own gifts, develop the 5 social-emotional learning competencies, and prioritize building strong relationships with like-minded students and adults. Find out how she has been able to use these 5 competencies to shape not only her life, but the lives of the many she comes in contact with. Enjoy. Making our schools better and serving our students and educators with more compassion is finally taking center stage. As we wrap up Women's History Month, we are honored to have with us the Southern California Manager of Educational Partnerships with Collaborative Classroom, Ms. Rachel Solis. With over 15 years of diverse teaching experience spanning from elementary to high school in public, private, and charter schools, as both a classroom teacher and intervention specialist, Ms. Solis is passionate about making schools a kinder and safer place where all students and teachers want to come to school and learn. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel. How you doing?
You. I am fantastic. Thank you for having me, Yoli. I just connected you right from the get-go. We connected. I love this.
I'm so grateful. I called you for another purpose, and it turned into this conversation that we're going to have.
The world is beautiful like that. Life's crazy beautiful.
Yes. So I'm so glad we met, and I know we're going to stay connected. This is great.
For sure.
So now it's Women's History Month. We want to celebrate you. And I'm just glad that we met at this time in this month. And we're going to get into a conversation about how schools are improving and what we can do to make them better. And before we do, I love to kind of jumpstart and get a feel for who you are, who motivated you to pursue a career in the field of teaching, and social emotional learning is really what we're doing here.
Wow. Yeah. I was thinking back. I loved this opportunity to just kind of reflect on my life. By the way, I was thinking it's not even 15, it's 20 years now. Who's doing the math? But who wants to? So when I think about how I came to social emotional learning, the true answer is I have no idea. I think it's a calling. I think I didn't know it when I was a kid, but life was hard for me. I was a small town girl from Iowa. My parents divorced when I was young. I had 2 brothers and I was raised by a father, and I moved out to California to live with my mom the day after graduating high school. And then, life didn't get easier. She moved away when I was really young and I was in college and just trying to find my way. And I just think back, and I was a very introspective person. I was always a very deep thinker. But when you're in school or younger, you don't know those as gifts when people point out you overthink things. So then I learned in college that kind of thinking was actually celebrated when you think about philosophy and child development. I ended up going into child development because I was always drawn towards kids. And I just feel like the universe guided me to where I was supposed to be. I fell into teaching kind of because I wanted to live by service to others. I always wanted to help. It always made me feel good. I just was always drawn to those who were struggling in life. I always found myself connecting emotionally, but I also found that I attached to others' emotions and I could carry it with me, which that's not a healthy place to be when you're carrying other people's emotions. So I actually score really high on the ACE. If you've heard of ACE, the Adverse Childhood Experiences. Yeah, I scored high on that myself. So, I just think that I was drawn towards this work. It was like a magnet. I was just being magnetized. We were coming together. Our worlds were coming. And it was just, that's the direction I was going.
It's interesting that you say, you were feeling a certain way about yourself as a young person. Because I think that's true for a lot of us, that are called to do this work, that, we had our own personal struggles. And I remember you telling me in high school was when you just didn't feel valued. You didn't have the friendships, you think, or what was happening?
Well, I did have the friendships. Me and my girls were still together to this day. I think it was my friends that actually, we were a close bunch. We grew up together, small town. I did have the friends, but school, I just wasn't, I want to say good at it. I don't know. I didn't connect with any adults. I don't know if anybody really saw me. I don't remember anybody talking to me about college. It really is by the grace of God that I moved out to California, and my parents told me if I didn't go to school, I was going to have to work full time. And I enrolled in college. And that's when I started to see myself connecting with folks there and courses. But in high school, I was this little girl just lost. I think I told you my goals were to become a limousine chauffeur. That was my goal.
Wow. Did you see someone who was a chauffeur? Where'd that come from?
I don't know. I think there was that movie. It wasn't 16 Candles, but and I don't want to date myself, but there was something about a movie back there where she was a chauffeur. And I thought, oh, that sounds great. I'm going to do that.
That's kind of cool. Driving.
Nobody talked to me about goals. Not that there's anything wrong with being a limousine chauffeur, but I just didn't see my life path. I didn't see where I fit in it.
Interesting. And so fast forward, now you are an educational partnerships manager for Collaborative Classroom. So tell us about Collaborative Classroom and your role over there.
Wow. Well, the way that even came in was so interesting, destined to be like divine intervention. It was just, so as a teacher, I could feel myself early on feeling like the classroom wasn't enough. My ripple needed to go wider. I felt that early on when I started teaching. And then I started a family of my own, married, started having children of my own. And then I decided to go to grad school and just I was going to go through, get my admin credential. And so when I was completing that, I was applying for a position as a literacy coach. And my major was instructional leadership, and I got my national board under reading and literacy. And so I was really going this direction, and I was absolutely devastated. I did not get that job. That interview lasted a couple days. I had my own private parking spot. I really thought I had that job in the bag. And I remember I was taking my last class, finals for a law class, which was really hard. I couldn't focus. I was waiting to get that call. And so when I got the call for them to tell me I didn't get it, I was so devastated. But it was divine intervention because the universe, it was all happening in my favor. Now I'm sure of it. So what was really interesting about that was I ended up taking a job for another private school while I was completing my coursework. And the head of the school at that private school where I didn't get the job, she was amazing. And she was telling me about this curriculum that embed social skills into the academic. And that curriculum was, I think they used making meaning and being a writer at that time. And so I just was intrigued and kind of was looking at the company, took this position as a regular classroom teacher, a fifth grade classroom. And an old friend approached me who worked for the organization that was that curriculum. And she was going to be retiring. And she said, I want you to try this curriculum in your classroom. And think about maybe you could, I guess I would come and work alongside her. And so I tried the curriculum, loved it. It changed the way my students thought, and it changed the way I taught. It was very much social skill embedded within. The head and the heart go together. You cannot do one without the other. They go hand in hand. And so I just saw what it did for my students. And so I was like, yes. So I interviewed, I got the position, and then she retired. And then I kind of took over in her shoes, which is a big pair of shoes to fill. But again, it just all happened the way it's supposed to be. And now I would say I'm kind of like a literacy coach for like 4 different districts. I really support district leaders in thinking about how to maximize the academic and the social piece of this work. So yeah, that's kind of long story longer, how I came here, and here I am.
That's pretty cool. I'm just thinking about collaborative classrooms. So what's an example of a curriculum? Is it that if it's a history lesson, they elaborate on how the student feels about the historical figures, or what's an example of a collaborative experience?
Yeah, so we're in the reading literacy space, reading and writing, but we also have a standalone program, social emotional learning program that's called Caring School Community. And so really what we think about in this work is making sure that our students feel safe, accepted, that they are independent readers, writers, and thinkers that care for themselves and for one another. And that work isn't just for our students, it's really thinking about us adults and our relationships with our students. How can we maximize that relationship? And that's the work that we do. So I always say I'm like a wedding coordinator. I come in and I get to work with teachers and district leaders to kind of bring the best of the best to make sure they're supported. And so our programs are educative. They outline all this work for teachers, but they really embed the social and the academic together.
Mm, so powerful. And I love how you keep bringing up the educator and incorporating them in this experience, because it's our work to help students, help children, but we have to take care of ourselves at the same time. So I love that you keep bringing that up, because there's so much going on in our world right now for educators.
Well, yeah, Yoli, and we're the number one contributing factor to a student's success. And that is a powerful thing, also scary to know. And we really set the tone, like our energy, what we bring to that classroom, what we give out there is what we'll get back. And so I do think of those relationships, and I feel like there maybe isn't enough emphasis on what the power of a relationship can do. And when I say a relationship, I don't just mean, students to students. I mean adults to students, students to students, and adults to adults. Like we can't pour from an empty cup. So we have to take care of ourselves so that we can help our students. And it's relationships are powerful.
Absolutely. And it's sometimes it starts with a teacher, because particularly when you're a teenager, I should say, because on this platform, we serve the college freshman that's heading into the new college experience and all that goes with that and the anxiety. And sometimes they don't want the parents to know because they're trying to adult in this world. So they don't want anybody to know they're nervous. And that teacher may be the first person, or that counselor may be the first person they have a real conversation with. And so it's just powerful for you to say these relationships on all levels are very important. So now, what do you think is happening? I mean, there's so much. We just came off this LA strike. I mean, what do you believe, or what do you see as the state of affairs pretty much with our kids today, or with our young adults?
Yeah. Ooh, there's a lot going on out there. And my heart hurts. I see what's happening. I think I was telling you, students and teachers, I feel like they don't want to be there anymore. We've really created these spaces that look and feel like prisons. I was thinking about, when we lock people out, best intentions, we're trying to keep everyone safe. We're then locking people in. And, that creates rebellion too, when you're locked in and you're somewhere. So how do we really make it a space where students want to be there and teachers want to be there, and every day they show up, they feel like they're important and the class isn't complete without them? That's really what I love to do. Is I love to support that work so that we're all seeing our place in creating that collaborative classroom. Again, it comes down to relationships. And I think that the state of today is just kids are scared too. True story. My son, he's in college, and he just recently shared that him and his friends sit around and talk about what would they do if a shooter came on campus? Where would they hide? How could they be a hero? Like, these are real conversations our older kids are thinking about, and it's real.
It's sad that that's a normal conversation for a teenager.
Right? Right? I mean, I said to him, I'm like, it makes me sad. And he's like, no, we just talk about like, how can we, be safe? We want to help. And it's normalized. But I think the news is just, when you turn on the news, ratings on the news, to get ratings, the things that we see nowadays, and the cost is really our society is just becoming more and more desensitized. It's, there's a lot happening out there. And, I think reading is the great equalizer. Like when you think about what's happening with the state of California, students are reading at below proficiency, an all-time high. Prisons have an all-time high rate of illiteracy. So there is just a lot happening out there, friend.
There's a lot. Absolutely. And we're definitely on the front lines of this stuff. And I'm just thinking about that student. Like I said, we serve the college freshman. We also serve the graduate. heading out into the workforce and just the transition that they have to go through of being in a work environment for the first time. The bottom line is a lot of college kids are feeling like they don't even want to go to college, or there's got to be another way. Do you agree, or how do you feel about that option for students outside of college?
Yes, well, both my kids are in college. I'm not against college, certainly. I think it's a great path, but it's not the only path. And so, I do think about that a lot. The story that we're selling of college being the only path is a cautionary tale. The world's changing. I think many students are actually, again, rebelling at that idea of sitting at a desk and receiving information. They're just supposed to sit there quietly and get information poured in their heads. And then they graduate and go to college to get more information poured into their heads. So, the world is it's changing, and students are thinking things differently. Like, they have ways to go about jobs and career paths in a different way than we can even understand. And so, yeah, the world's changing. It's not the Industrial Revolution anymore, where they're going to sit behind a desk and just receive and learn how to get in a factory line, So I'm not saying college isn't important, but something has to give. And I would just say, how do you feel about that? Because I wonder a lot about how we can ensure our educational systems are cultivating the unique gifts and talents of every student.
I was going to say, I thought about something you said before about cultivating gifts. And that I know in my life, that's what it was about for my parents. What does she like to do? What do we see that's developing and blossoming in her? Okay, she wants to be an artist. We're going to send her to art school. You know what I mean? It was like there was no fear, no hesitation. So I feel like that's what parents probably need to do, is pay a little closer attention to their students, their young folks, and say, hey, what do they seem to be passionate about right now?
Well, and if I was honest, and I would have to be, I think I was thinking that the only path was college for both of my kiddos. But one of my kiddos was very artistic. And we saw that early on. He was just not a kind of like multiple choice kind of kid. He was brilliant, but he needed to express through the arts. And so now he's at an art college, one that specializes in the arts. So yeah, we need to listen to our kids and pay attention to those gifts and try to water that and let it grow.
So now, what are like a few ways our educators and parents and even counselors can just improve their direct relationship with their students and their children?
Yes, I think that we have to remind ourselves to just slow down, slow way down. We are, especially being a small town girl, I can feel a difference when I go back home to when I live here. We're in a very fast paced kind of rat race over here, and there's a saying that says furious activity is no substitute for true understanding. So, we have to slow down. That would be my first thing, is pause, because that's really the way we can make time for those deep connections, relationships with one another. The student to student, the adult to student, all those adults to adults. And that should be the number one priority in schools, really, is, I hear a lot of times that one more thing on the plate, and you and I have talked about this, right? Like, we can't keep adding on to the plate. But the thing is that is the plate. That is the plate that everything else rests on. And so relationships and connecting is really important. So I think that's one.
I was just thinking what came to mind when you said that was the morning routine. Maybe, there can be something there, because in our conversations, you were talking about affirmations that you even do for yourself. So do you see that transferring into the classroom?
Well, I get to wake up every day loving my job and feeling like I'm making an impact. So there is that. It's not to say that I don't get caught up in perfectionism. I work with a lot of brilliant minds, and I have to talk to myself on a daily and not, second guess and really believe in myself. So I do start my day. I try every day to wake up, and the first thing I do is kind of go through a little gratitude list of like, what am I grateful for today, to center myself. So yeah, I think that's a great thing, for an easy takeaway for all of us to be thinking about, like, first thing, because it's easy to hop on your phone, right? Our phones are our alarms.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say that. And the other things I think about too is, we often think, when you get on the airplane, you hear put on the oxygen mask on yourself before you can assist others. But that really is more of like in a crisis trauma situation, but I think every day, how do we take care of ourselves so that we can be our best version? So I think that another suggestion is, I mean, it sounds so silly, but get to know yourself. Really get to know yourself. Where are you in the competencies? Castle kind of talks about these core competencies of self awareness, self management, social awareness, our relationship skills, and then our responsible decision making. There's a wonderful reflection tool that can be found on the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning's site, Castle site. You can actually download that. It's free. And my husband and I were actually going through it and reading. You get to reflect and measure yourself. And it was interesting because I asked him, read through some of them, and he said, "What?" I'm thinking in my head, I don't know if I agree with his. Like it's for ourselves
Yes.
to reflect on us, and we all have work to do. So where do we all start? That would be a great suggestion. I say start getting to know yourself. Surround yourself with good people, places, and things that are healthy for you. We are who we hang around. That's important. Yeah, those are some takeaways I would say.
I think it's great that you're bringing up the 5 competencies for those listening that don't know about them. Can you go through them one more time? There's self-awareness.
Yes, yes. Self-awareness, the self-management,
Mm-hmm.
social awareness, relationship skills, and then responsible decision making.
Man, the basics, the core. Like you said, if we can sit alone and just kind of take an inventory on those, we might find out we don't have really strong self-management skills.
Yeah, and it varies on a day, right? I'm not
Yes.
always it varies. And I also think about the scale where we are on there. We're all at different places and we have different strengths in different areas. And so I think honoring ourselves and knowing what are we good at, that reflection tool is a great way to know what are you good at? What do you find that you're doing on a regular basis? And then maybe challenge yourself. Where might I spend a little more time working on that? And it's a really great tool.
Yeah, I love it. The 5 competencies. And I also love the fact that you said, I get to wake up to go to fight at the job or in your position. That is powerful. I get to wake up. You really love what you do. And that's the key.
I do. I just feel so blessed in the work that I do. My ripple gets to go wider. It's really not about me. It's about the people that I work with. They just make me a better person in our organization. I mean, when you work for a nonprofit, there is a lot to be said about that work. Everyone is there for the mission. And we do that work through our materials and through our professional learning. And so everybody's very committed, and we want to make schools a safer place for students and for educators. So I love what I do.
Yeah. And I mean, I believe you're a powerful resource to the collaborative classroom. I mean, you told me your story about, being a cancer survivor of 7 years. So you not only come with knowledge, you come with this personal passion and desire to make it, to be successful. Can you speak on how your cancer journey may have helped you in your life path?
Yes, I can, because I didn't even share this little tidbit with you, but I kind of stepped away from collaborative classroom and then I was diagnosed. So this was like 5 years ago, I'm 7 years out. So, and I worked for a large organization that it was in the world of science, technology, engineering, and math. And that just didn't fill my cup. And I was fighting through cancer. And all my colleagues from collaborative classroom, I really stayed in touch with them all. But I learned through that. I always meet great people no matter where I go. I feel energy from people. And so I connect with people. And so I had great people where I was, but I felt this calling to go back to collaborative classroom. I felt like, first of all, literacy is my love, is the gateway to equity. And so when we think about impact, that's where my services can best be spent. So yeah, it was a crazy, wild ride. And it really taught me what matters to me. And at the end of the day, how can I make the world a better place? And I feel like with collaborative classroom, that's what we're doing on a daily.
Yeah. But just the power and the energy and the will to get up and keep moving. I mean, you have an amazing story just in itself, just that story about how you survived cancer. You know what I'm saying?
I know I forget that. I mean, I forget it because it's like Yeah, I guess you're right. And, sadly, I'm not the first and sadly, I'm not the last, but I am lucky to be here. And so I don't want to wake up and forget and get comfortable. I don't, I want to, yeah, I want to have impact.
Powerful stuff. And so I'm just thinking, we always like to wrap up with these words of encouragement for our listeners. And, they're just seeking to develop and, protect their authentic voice. Do you have words of encouragement for that listener?
I do. I think that we learn as much from the younger generation as they learn from us, if not more.
Yes.
I think the younger generation has it going on. I think that our labels and our way of living and thinking is being questioned. And so we're no longer at that place where all of those things still apply. I think that, 5 years ago, my son wrote on a sticky in my office. I'm always facing this wall with my computer, and the stickies, he pasted it on the wall. It said, something about do not fear the judgment of others. He was 14. And I was he was very smart. But that note was just very significant, and it carried a lifetime of lessons that it really forecasted I want to say a bumpy road. I don't know if it was a challenging road, and one that I would not have been prepared for that road had I not done the work at Collaborative Classroom every day, living by our core principles. So again, that's that law of the universe working in my favor. But I've had to do lots of work on myself. I think believing in ourselves every day, trying to pay attention to that little voice in us and not try to put it away, but listen to that little voice. I think that life is hard. It's going to be hard, but it's worth every bit of it. It makes you a better person. I just think about those beautiful words, is to not fear the judgment of others. I think that is really important. And yeah, believing in whatever it is that makes you unique. That's important.
Powerful stuff. You're walking it out. You're not talking about it. You're walking this journey.
It's true. Perspective is such a thing, right? I have the opportunity to learn because of the situations I've been in. And so if I can plant that seed for other people, empathy is a powerful thing. Compassion is powerful. But yeah, be courageous. Listen to that little voice in you. That's what I would say.
I love it. Thank you so much. My goodness. I'm so glad we met. And if they want to find you and learn a little bit more about you, are you available on Instagram, or where would you like to send our listeners?
Yes. Well, I love to connect. I am a connector. That is my superpower. I love coffee. I love a good conversation. So that is my gift. So folks can find me on, of course, my email address is Rachel, or I have to think about this, rsolis@collaborativeclassroom.org. I can always be emailed there. And then I do have Instagram, Life's Crazy Beautiful. That's my Instagram. I need to up my tech skills though, but I would just say, reach out, find me. LinkedIn is a good place. And on our website, collaborativeclassroom.org is a great place to find me. I will be doing this work until they don't want me anymore.
Man, this work is your life. Powerful stuff. It's a pleasure meeting you. Life's Crazy Beautiful on IG. Love that.
It's crazy beautiful. I didn't make it up. We're all living this crazy, beautiful life, but I'm lucky enough to be here. So yeah, look me up.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to connecting with you and talking to you more. And thank you so much for being on our podcast this week.
Yoli, the honor is mine, honestly. This has just been amazing. So I'm glad that the universe brought us together.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. You take care of yourself, and I'll be in touch real soon.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us. Take the time to get to know yourself so you too can make an incredible impact in the world. For more information about other episodes, remember to subscribe to the Back to Me podcast, College and Beyond. I'm your host, Yoli Tamu. Leave a review at the end of this podcast, and if you would like to learn more about our book club and other special events, join the Back to Me podcast Facebook group, or simply text Back to Me to 833-206-4565. Until next time, be well.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I found